Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone is doing well. I love Thursdays because that's the time that I get to share the mic now. We love YWTV because it gives us an opportunity to educate and inspire our community. But Thursday in particular is a special day because it gives us an opportunity to lift up the voices of Black women in our community. And, these conversations always are a gift to me personally, and I know a gift to all of you. And today is no different. We have got another great conversation for you. And I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to Kim Mills. So welcome, Kim. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today.
So I'm going to jump in and tell you all a little bit about Kim so you can be prepared for our conversation. She is the executive chef and owner of a private chef and catering company called Travels Gourmet, LLC. And we have the link for you here in our comments. She is born out of her love of various cuisines and food experiences. She decided to share her passion for food with a wider audience. And the unique name, which I know I was curious about the origins, came organically created like most of her food. Laughter. Kim is known for her infectious laugh, and I've heard it already, so I can attest to it. And there you go. You're going to hear it here too. So she's known for her infectious laugh. Travels. Kim travels to cook customized, flavorful meals for her clients. And her passion in domestic and international travel has influenced her work significantly. And gourmet. She is a connoisseur of fine food, drink, and producer of fine food. So there we have it, folks. Travels Gourmet provides customized food, restaurant quality services in the comfort of your own home. And who doesn't need that right now when we
Exactly.
are really going out and we do want to have that level of cuisine, in front of us. In addition to her duties as the chef and business owner, she's an adjunct lecturer at LaGuardia Community College, teaching culinary arts 1 and 2 and food and culture. She's also a member of the New York Women's Culinary Alliance, having recently been elected to the executive board, holding the position of treasurer, which tells us she's good with money too, folks. That's what I get from that piece. So welcome. So excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. You've had some amazing guests.
Well, I am so thrilled to talk with you. And, one of the things that, we have so often conversations, especially with the young women in our organization, is how women kind of get into non-traditional spaces. Right. So here you are a woman, here you are a Black woman, and you are running your own business and you are a chef.
Yes.
So tell us how you kind of got into that space. We know how the name of your company came together, but tell us how this became your passion and how this became, your daily thing.
Sure. So I'm a career changer. So first and foremost, one of the things that I try to always impart, and when I talk to people, is what you start doing is not necessarily what you're going to end doing. I graduated from Vanderbilt University. I went on a 4-year full tuition scholarship with a program known as the Posse program. And it's students that are chosen out of high school based on their leadership abilities and community service in terms of what they've done. So I think when I graduate college with a degree in human and organizational development, I'm going to go into HR.
Yeah.
And I could not find a job in HR fresh out of college. My first job was in finance. I did custodial banking. So that means banks that bank for other banks or high net worth individuals. I started as an investment assistant. My goal in going there was, let me get my foot in the door and then maybe I can get into HR. And I started in Nashville because that's where Vanderbilt is. I stayed after school. I came back home because I got a management position, did really well, and realized that I really did not like finance. I was young enough in my career that I was just like, I'm doing well at this. I'm an officer of the bank. I'm making great money, but I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And I had a really good friend who did medical monitoring for the FDA and was like, hey, Kim, why don't you consider pharmaceutical sales? So I was in pharmaceutical sales for about 14 years. I've always cooked. My business started where, everyone's having an event. They're like, hey, Kim, can you make a pan of mac and cheese? Hey, Kim, can you make this? And I got to the point where I'm making more and more things and I'm having to Google because I don't know technique. I don't know the proper way of doing things. And that was something that really bothered me. I also was like in that crossroads of my career where it was like, do I go into management because that's what I'm supposed to do? I'm doing really well in sales. I'm always on these different like committees and boards where I'm training other people, but I'm not happy. And we talk about the village. I'm very, very thankful of my best friend. She was like, you've been cooking. Why don't you go to culinary school? And I was like, because I work full time. Who does that? Like, I'm making good money in pharmaceutical sales. I can just kind of cook on the side because that's what I was doing. And she said to me, before you tell me all the reasons why you can't, figure out how you can. And so when we talk about the village and we talk about drawing from other people, you're like, I'm a research person. I start researching. When I went and I stepped foot in ICE, which is where I graduated from, Institute of Culinary Education, I did a tour. It was the very first time ever in my life I felt at home.
Wow.
Seeing a kitchen. It was like I saw equipment that was like bigger than the average home. And I was like, and everyone was in their zone doing what they loved, doing something that I loved. And that's at that point I was like, okay, let me figure out how I do this. I worked in pharma Monday through Friday. And on Saturday and Sunday, I went to culinary school. So for a year and change, I worked 7 days a week. And then in between, I still was doing client dinners in pharma. I also was trying to get some more professional culinary experience. So I was doing culinary volunteering. So there were times when I literally would change out of my suit in pharma in my car and into kitchen scrubs with my knife roll. So I think there's that level of, okay, you're in it. When you commit to something, you go full force ahead and you kind of see where it's going to go to. I was in that space with pharma where I was turning down business for my own business. So I'm teaching as an adjunct. I'm in pharma and I'm cooking in my own business. That's 3 jobs. And I was like, I can't keep up this pace. And I was like, something has to give. And what had to give was pharma. And that led me to, Laughter Travels Gourmet going full time. And I really thought about the fact, I was like, I can't ask other people to invest in my business if I'm not doing the same thing, if I'm not investing in my business, if I'm showing it only as a hobby. Yeah. So we are here now.
Well, and you sure are. And I have to say, there's so many things you just said in that story that are just like firing for me. One, I really appreciate you sharing that your journey was not a straight line, because I think especially for young women, that, that's such an important message, because we sometimes, especially when we're younger, and I'm a lot older than you, so I can say this from experience looking back, is when you're younger, sometimes you really just want everything perfect and you feel like, well, this is it, but there really is, as you get older, you realize there really is no perfect, and that the road has a lot of twists and turns. And I really appreciate you sharing that piece of it. And I also love how you talked about the village, because our villages really do help us be like that mirror that reflects, what's actually happening versus what we see happening. Right. So that's so powerful. And the side hustle. I mean, you also described the side hustle that became the main hustle evolution. Yes. And we do so much work at the YW with, women entrepreneurs that decide that they, have something they want to do, and are, it's a scary moment when you transition, yes, them over. So you just hit so many amazing areas for us.
And I think one of the things that we realize too is it's about transferable skills. Like if I think about the different jobs that I've had, right? So when I was in finance, I was doing custodial banking. So it was looking at the numbers, right? When I was it was dealing directly with clients. When I was in pharma, it was doing presentations. It was doing training. It was having a monthly budget and figuring out, okay, what do we have? What's my budget? How am I going to allot my resources? And taking all of those different components and then using it in my business, like, what's my pitch? In pharma, they talk about your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
How do you condense it? What's your long-term pitch? there are all these different parts where you don't realize. Now being in pandemic, as an adjunct, I used to teach in person. We literally, over the course of a weekend, I literally remember how it happened. I taught my class. I was literally teaching, and everyone's emails are going off. And at the end, they're like, "Chef, do we have lab?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I left. I opened my email, and it's like, "Don't come in." So we had one weekend to transition the entire semester to online training, to online learning. So having those skills in pharma, when you're doing training sessions, when you're doing meetings, those are all skills I was able to use in order to be able to transition over in order to present for my students.
Yeah.
When you're planning, how do I take this content and make it more accessible so that everyone can learn it? That's what I also use in terms of virtual cooking classes. So even though there's no linear course, but you can always take something in every position and every experience that you have that you can transfer and apply to something else.
Yes. And that's such an important message. And I, hope our viewers are making note of that, especially those that are kind of struggling with, making some kind of shift in do I have it? Because we know as women,
yeah.
and it's even, I know, a different experience for, Black women and women of color than for a white woman. But I know for women, a lot, very often we think, well, we don't really have the full experience, so we have to wait.
Right.
We can't do it yet.
Yeah.
But, you're clearly reinforcing that we've got it all in us.
And I think that's something even pandemic has shown me is I tend to overthink things, right? I tend to be that planner where it's like, okay, all the pieces don't fit. And I've realized in pandemic, you can't plan everything. So you just have to do it and then you figure it out. So a lot of times I just do it. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, what did I learn from this? And what can I do to make this better?
Yeah.
So it's something that even as an entrepreneur, there's so many different moving parts in terms of how your business will evolve. My business 5 years ago is not my business now. My business 5 years ago was very carefree. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. Here you go. Business now is, not being afraid to say no to business, and that's something as a young entrepreneur, no one really talks to you about, because you feel like you have to take all business because you're like, I'm new. People just need to know who I am. But as you get more established, you realize, no, I've worked hard for this. I continue to work hard for this. And not everyone's going to be your client. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a author and she said, let my helpers find me. And it's something that I've really started to kind of take in. It's like, let my helpers find me. Because those people that are meant to be in my life, those people, if not now, and that's one of the things I do say to people now, it's like, if not now, then maybe in the future. Because you're always building relationships. You just don't know how and when. Yeah. And I think just be authentic with it,
Yes, the time may not be now, but the time may be in the future. That's a great that's a great nugget right there for sure. So tell me when you transitioned into this space. I mean, obviously, you did it after you kind of already had a career intact.
Correct.
And you stepped into a space where, maybe there weren't a lot of people that looked like you.
No, I knew that, interestingly enough, being in culinary school, I had one of my chef instructors who came up to me and she was like, I need you to have more confidence in what you're doing. My first semester or my first module, working with a knife was not intuitive to me. And I know that sounds really weird considering as a chef, you constantly use your knife, but it's a skill just like anything else. And I remember my first chef used to be like, you're horrible. Like, are you serious? And it got to the point where he was like, you need extra help. And I was like, well, if I need extra help, then I'm going to take extra help. But, as I moved into that second module, I had one of my chef instructors who was like, and she was like, I don't think you're a restaurant chef, Kim. She was just like, it doesn't seem like that would be your joy. And I was like, it's not. And she's the one who was like, hey, have you considered doing private or have you considered doing personal? And there's stigma to that, right? Because it's not something that everyone does. Like if you think about, every industry has little nuances, right? So there are restaurant chefs, which are amazing chefs. There are also private and personal chefs, which are just as talented.
Mm-hmm.
And working in a restaurant for my externship, which is a culinary internship, really kind of cemented to me that I was just like, I don't like having the same menu in and out every day. I love having client interaction. I love being able to talk with somebody, being able to figure out what's your vision? How do I make your vision come to life? And it's something that I think continue to evolve in terms of what my business. Initially, pre-COVID, I did events. That was my niche. My niche was Kim did events. Kim did small scale events. My largest event was a destination wedding for about 75 people.
Mm.
So I think it's been, but then pandemic, I couldn't do things in person anymore. So I had to kind of take a step back and was like, well, what do I do? Where do I go with this? And I think it's still I think one of the things that I've been able to is be open to new experiences. During pandemic, I've also been writing recipes. I pride myself in being able to write recipes for people who are on special diets.
Mm.
And it's based on my personal experience. I have people in my family that are on special diets, on a renal diet, diabetic. And from a caretaker perspective, it's really difficult. I think about people in my life who have food allergies, including myself. And how do you go from the things that you've always known and loved to now someone telling you, you can't eat this? So I think much of what and how my business has grown has been based on experience and being open to new experiences. Like, how can I take some of this information that I have and now how can I use this in food? Like, I have this knowledge. I believe in culture. I believe in history when it comes to food. But how can I respect that and also bring it in a way that's more accessible to more people? So I think everything has been evolving. It hasn't been like one set box. You never could have told me that at the beginning of pandemic that I would have kind of transitioned less from doing events and now more so doing virtual instruction, to being more cerebral with my food in terms of writing recipes, thinking through techniques, the education end. I really don't know where it's going to go. So I've also realized I'm like, be open to it.
I hear a book coming. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing, but we'll let your path evolve onto its own. But I think you've got a book coming.
But I think, I'm sorry, I guess to bring it back full around, being in spaces traditionally where I have been either the only woman of color, I think I go back to my childhood and the experiences that my parents gave me. Like it was, hey, this may be non-traditional, but you're going to experience this and you're going to own it and you're going to be comfortable in it and also be comfortable in being uncomfortable. Yeah. I think so there's a level of when you have the skill and you have the knowledge, I'm okay to basically be the only one. I'm okay to then be able to come in so that I can crack the door so that others can come in as well. Mm-hmm. So that when my students talk to me and they're like, hey, chef, I have a question. I don't understand how. Hey, chef, I've now graduated. I'm now in a 4-year. This transition is a lot harder. I've been there. These are some things for you to consider. Have you done this, this, and this? I think that's your role, right? When you look at life, you're given these experiences and there are people that are put in your path so that you can do the same thing. Yeah. And give it back to someone else. So is it always easy? No. But I think when I look at if I stand strong in terms of who I am, and then also having that village of people that are just like, give yourself more credit, give yourself the grace you give everyone else, you're able to sow more seeds.
Absolutely. And when we were kind of getting ready to go live, we started talking a little bit ourselves, the two of us. And by the way, Natalie McKenzie's watching, and I have to say, Natalie, we were talking about you.
We were talking about you.
We were totally talking about you, and making sure that you got the props and know how much we both adore you. But one of the things you said was, obviously we're in a time of a reckoning, right now, and we were talking about that, and you had said, that there's two kinds of people, right? That there's people that are doing it just because it's like in, and vogue, at the moment, and then there are people that are, in it for the long haul. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I thought that was a really interesting distinction and the way you framed it.
I do. I think when we look at political movements and we look at content and we look at, I think there's performative and I think there's long term. So I always ask the question: is the work that's being done, is it performative? Is it to say that, hey, I've checked the box? Hey, this is what I'm supposed to do, or is it long term? And what does long term look like? Long term doesn't always look like getting glory. Long term, a lot of times, is behind the scenes, and it's putting those pieces in place so that you're building steps, right? It's making sure when the conversation is uncomfortable that you speak up and you're like, that's not comfortable. And I realized that even especially over the course with my social media, I've had people that say to me, they're like, Kim, you really shouldn't talk about this. This is political on your social media. You've mentioned this in your stories. And the one thing I say is, when people see me, you should see a Black woman. You should see a Black woman because I'm the product of my experiences, and my experiences are based on that. Now, I've also, it's not saying that that's the only part of me, but it's a strong component of my identity. And when you say I don't see color when I see you, that's erasing who I am. Yeah. It's easy for me to be able to say, in terms of, in terms of work, it's taking steps. It's having the difficult conversations. It's having the seats at the table, right? It's being able to say, hey, this is uncomfortable. And what can I do to make it better? Yeah. Who do I know that I can bring in that's going to make the difference, that's going to make that change?
And I really appreciate you sharing that, how you describe that about, by not acknowledging the color, you're erasing me, because I think that, that is something that, white people in particular, because as we're trying to, learn and unlearn and navigate, it's something that, I hear lots of white people say, well, there are no differences and we have to get to that space, but the reality of it is there are differences, right, and they have to be okay. It's not about, taking them out of it. And so I really appreciate you putting that out there the way you did, because it really brings it home that it erases you when the difference is not acknowledged. What we want to see is that the difference is embraced and that we're all on the same space.
And it's okay. I think traditionally, when I think of the friendships that I've, like my long-term friendships, and I think you also see it in my food, right? Like, I love different cuisines. It's because I've grown up with different experiences. One of my best friend is Puerto Rican. In high school, I had friends that are Caribbean. In college, high school going into college, I have friends that are Asian. I have friends that were, like, one of my close friends is from Burma. When I look at food, I look at it from that cultural lens. Is it, and being able to say it's inspired by, so even when we talk about international foods and cuisines, there's definitely a level of making sure that you make the acknowledgement that this is Dominican inspired. I'm not Dominican. Mm-hmm. So no matter what I do in terms of friendships, learning from abuela, that still does not make me cooking Dominican food. It's Dominican inspired. It's being able to say, I can acknowledge that there are differences, but I'm embracing that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I think when I look at children are curious, and children will ask you. Versus with adults are so fearful sometimes of not saying what's politically correct that they don't ask.
Yeah.
And when we don't ask, we perpetuate untruths, and we truly perpetuate, misinformation, versus having that uncomfortable conversation and saying, you know what, hey, and I've had to do that even a few months ago. I actually, it was professional, slash, in my board, I had an event where I was the moderator. And during the course of the event, I said something. I was like, hey, you guys. And I had someone who was on the call who was older than me. It was a white woman. And she said to me, she said, I think there's so much more than we can say than you guys. And she proceeded to tell me about how my language was wrong. And because we were in an open space during a live event, I realized I was like, this is not the time nor place to address this. But what I did do is, first I did the self-check after I got off this event. I contacted a few trusted people where it's like, am I reading this wrong? And they were like, no, that was inappropriate. And I was like, okay, so that was step one. Step two, I called her and I said, hey, left a message. She called me back and I was like, I'm calling because I really felt that in the time that we had this, that was nor the time nor the place. If you felt there was something that I did, you could have pulled me to the side and we could have had a conversation. But that in that time, that was not the time nor place to correct me based on a colloquialism. So I think it's like learning how to self-advocate, as women, and also being a Black woman. I think about all the people that don't have the words. I think about the people that say, oh, it's not that important. It was something small, and these small things build.
Right.
So it's like, let's do the check. Let's have that conversation, and I'm glad we had a positive conversation. But because I realized like this did not make me feel comfortable, I need to address it.
Well, I appreciate you modeling, kind of addressing that microaggression, because that's exactly what, it's wonderful for women who are watching, who are Black women and women of color, to hear your process. And it's wonderful for, those of us, who are, white women, to hear and understand what journey we take you on when we do that, and why we need to check ourselves, in terms of that. So I really appreciate you, taking us through your steps, because that, shows such a thoughtful process on your part. And, again, the microaggressions are out there, for sure. And it definitely creates an opportunity to be able to address it. And hopefully next time that person handles it differently.
And she actually said that to me. It was interesting. She said to me at the end of the conversation, she said, I do quite a bit of Zooms.
Yeah.
She's like, so I did not think about the fact that what I said and how I'm perceived to other people during that Zoom. And, we're learning a whole level of etiquette now, right? When it comes to Zoom, there's regular, like with Zoom, even though we have face-to-face, we still don't have personal interaction. We don't have the beauty of understanding or having backstory in terms of knowing someone personally, of being able to understand body language, of understanding tone, ageism. There's so many different components that with Zoom, we're not able to necessarily address. And those were things that she even said. She's like, well, I felt like you were being ageist in some of the things that you said. I had to take that because there were components that I hadn't considered or thought about as well, And so I think it's having the dialogue, it's having the conversation.
Yes. And that's something that, I hope as a society we get more and more to. And clearly what we're trying to also establish by, making our share the mics, a part of our regular conversation, is to be able to have people think about that these types of conversations are really important, and they can be uncomfortable, but they can open up a whole new world for both parties.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate you sharing that. So tell us, time goes so quickly, I always feel like I need a part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, for all of these. But so what's next for Chef Kim? I mean, I know I'm rooting for the book. I'm sorry. I feel like but,
I'm rooting for some virtual cooking. I'm rooting for some virtual cooking. I'm really not sure. I think that's been the beauty, and I'm kind of in a transition space of that as well. For me, it's leaning into my virtual cooking courses. You know, I have a good amount of corporate clients. Where they're looking. Cooking is a life skill. And pre-pandemic, we didn't really necessarily have to think about it, you know, and there's so many different components when it comes to food. You know, I say that food is love, food is economics, food is cultural. And I think if I could share the voice that food is not monolithic. You know, I think a lot of times there tends to be an idea like, oh, she's a Black woman, she only cooks Southern food. Okay, no, I'm a Black woman. I love Southern food. You know, I respect Southern food, but I also cook Asian food. I also cook food of the Latinx cultures. You know, there's so many different components of food. So I think if there's one thing that I say is next is me being able to share that on a larger platform. I don't know what that platform is.
But I love that message too, though. I mean, you know, don't put you in a box. You know, which is, you know, part of obviously why we have Share the Mic as an outlet to try to, you know, help get people thinking about these things, but that, you know, your skills are clearly varied. I'm hungry for lunch, so I have to ask you, like, what's your now I'm thinking about I'm still on the mac and cheese, by the way. I'm still on the mac and cheese. So tell us before we close out, what's your best and favorite dish to cook?
So lately I make a sorrel braised oxtail. Because it's warm, it's flavorful, it's Southern inspired, it's Caribbean inspired. I feel like it's the best of both worlds.
Well, you know, I love it. I'm now dreaming of oxtail to go with my mac and cheese. And I just really appreciated this time with you, and thank you for being so candid and sharing your experience. And, you know, we wish you so much success as you continue to, you know, evolve this chapter, and we'll see where it goes next. Because clearly I love how you know, phrased it up front. I mean, you know, all your, you know, the change that you know, have gotten in professionally, and where it's brought you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I fully support, you know, like I said, having a platform and where there are organizations that are doing the work. It's not performative. It's actually saying, okay, like, what do we need to address and how do we need to address it? So thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Wow. And this won't be the last time we see each other.
It will not be the last time. And you're cooking for me, by the way. We just gotta figure out when. I want it all. But folks, for those of you watching, couple notes for you. One, we have in the comments here the link to how you can get to Chef Kim and learn about her classes, learn about her ability to, you know, do some in-home cooking for you and all of that. So please pay note to that. Also, you know, this is one of those conversations that we do in this way so that we can share it, you know, with the community. So please, easy to share, take this link and put it onto your Facebook page. Sorry, I've got a little person who keeps wanting to chat with me. I know Hollis Thomas is watching. She laughs at my my arm wave, but she's usually at my on Facebook Live. Anyway, you seeing the arm wave, Hollis? Okay. But you know, please amplify this conversation. You're part of that amplifying it as well. Share it, send it to your friends, send it to someone who would love to learn about Chef Kim and be part of this conversation. Put it on your Facebook page, take the link, put it in text, put it on Messenger. It's wonderful to be able to, you know, get the word out. And also, you know, there's a lot more great YWTV ahead, and we hope that you can join us for our upcoming conversations. And in particular, I do want to make sure that you are thinking about our Women's Leadership Conference, which is happening right now. It is Women's History Month. You know, Chef Kim definitely reinforced the great conversation we started this week with, that was with Dr. Chris Purnell. Next week and the week subsequent, we have 1 hour bits for all of you to help lift you up. Schedule them into your calendars, and definitely make a point to join us to take that moment for yourself, like hopefully you just did, and feel fuller, for it, and feel inspired. We have Dr. Balpreet Graywall-Burke coming next week. We have Janine LaRue coming the week after. You got that, Natalie? Our friend Janine LaRue is joining us. And we're ending our interviews the last week with Rachel Antonoff, a fashion designer. And all of it culminates with a wonderful virtual networking event that we hope you can all join us for. So please make note. The link is also here, and you can register and join us for that. And for those of you who are still trying to figure out yourself, figure out your voice, and figure out your story, we have a great opportunity for you. It's a free journaling workshop to help you kind of learn who you are, put it down on paper, reflect. We've got a wonderful facilitator, Rachel Brenner, and some great guest appearances by some of the fabulous poets that we've had on Share the Mic Now. That'll be part over the 6 weeks, no charge. It's really just about bringing women together and helping them listen to their voices and put it down on paper to help your story. I mean, Chef Kim listened to her little voice, and look where it got her. That can happen and should happen for all of us. We just need to make that space to listen, whether you've got a great friend like Chef Kim did, who reflected it back to you. But it has to start by listening to your inside voice, for sure. So with that, everyone, have a great day. I'm not having oxtail and mac and cheese, but I'm going to find something in my fridge and pretend. And but look forward to being with you soon.
Well, let me know. Call me on. I'll help you out.
I love it. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks so much for spending time with us.